Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. A behind-the-scenes look at the Cowboys' analytics overhaul under Mike McCarthy, Part 4. This is the fourth and final part of a series on the Cowboys' analytics department, consisting of inside information from a variety of current and former Cowboys employees. In case you missed the first three parts, you can find those below. The Cowboys undertook a sizable quest to beef up their analytics department following the 2022 season, and finally manifest the kind of structure that Mike McCarthy had pitched to Jerry Jones back in January of 2020. That resulted in the hiring of John Park, who then filled out a department that now ranks among the league's largest. That this process coincided with the same offseason in which McCarthy took over offensive play calling, something he had not done since the 2018 season with the Packers, is no coincidence. McCarthy had noticed some inefficiencies in the offense that had been run by Kellen Moore, and he felt that he knew how to best solve them. But McCarthy also wanted to have an analytics team he could rely on while taking on this heavier workload, so getting the hire of Park right was paramount. As detailed in the previous installment of this series, the early returns are positive. Park and the team he assembled have drawn rave reviews from inside the organization, and McCarthy was able to have great success calling the offense, as Dallas improved in nearly every statistical category this year. However, it wasn't a seamless transition, and it wasn't a complete success. As any Cowboys fan can attest to, the offense started off real slow. Some of this was due to the general growing pains that most teams experience when there is a change in play caller. Take, for example, the Eagles. They promoted Brian Johnson from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator this past offseason, and the offense struggled and ultimately regressed despite the scheme remaining completely intact. Now, Johnson is the pass game coordinator in Washington, and the Eagles are looking for a new coordinator. The growing pains didn't last long for Dallas, though. McCarthy eventually got back into a groove calling plays, but it was more than that. The Cowboys went into their bye week with plenty of questions on offense. They had posted solid results to that point, but something just fell off. McCarthy used the bye week to huddle with his coaching staff, but it also offered a chance to get some data insights from his new analytics department. One staff member familiar with the process put it this way: when the newly hired analytics staffers, first got here, they were drinking water out of a fire hose. There was so much administrative stuff they had to get in place just to be ready at the start of the season. But that bye week was their first chance to really put up any info to be used. It's unclear what all was discussed in those meetings, but the differences on the field were immediately noticeable. The offense was suddenly filled with pre-snap motion, and the early down pass rate, which had already been fairly high, exploded to levels never before seen in Dallas. The production followed, too, as the Cowboys began scoring points with regularity, including a solid bump in red zone touchdowns after struggling early on and finding new ways to feature their best players. That's just one example of how the new analytics staffers' influence could be seen on the field, but their impact extended all throughout the building. Weekly reports from the analytics department, as well as frequent interaction between the department and the coaches and players, seemingly contributed to a higher level of preparedness week in and week out. That manifested itself in the form of quite a few blowout wins over inferior teams. Even the losses, primarily against the Eagles and Dolphins on the road, were very close and hard-fought games. The blowout loss to the Bills was less so a case of lacking in preparation and more so the Bills coming out with an aggressively run-heavy offense, which was a drastic departure from what they had been running all year. Quite simply, Buffalo caught them by complete surprise. Still, some point to the Cowboys' embarrassing loss to the Packers in the wild card round of the playoffs, and McCarthy himself has since said that the players were too fast to start that game, chasing big plays instead of letting the game come to them. This exemplifies the highly volatile nature of the sport of football, and how hard it can be to precisely quantify things in this world. The sense within the organization is that the team's level of preparation has gone up as a result of the larger analytics department this year, but there's only so much impact they can have on any single game. That raises the question of what's next. That feeling of positivity, that everything is now in its right place with McCarthy calling plays and the data side of the operation at full strength, was certainly not shared by the fan base, but it was a big part of Jerry Jones' decision to keep McCarthy around. From an infrastructure standpoint, McCarthy has fundamentally reshaped the way this team approaches football, and the analytics department is already looking to grow further. Cowboys news: Chris Jones would truly be an all-in move for Jerry Jones. Should the Cowboys truly go all in? Chris Jones, yes, yes, and more yes. Did I mention yes? Because yes. Jones is easily the most coveted interior defensive lineman on the open market this offseason, presuming the Chiefs don't hit the 29-year-old with another franchise tag, but it's expected they won't. If they don't, the Cowboys and Zimmer better be standing on Jones' front door with roses, chocolates, and a checkbook as early as March 11th, when legal tampering can begin, to try and add the 3-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Pro Bowler and 5-time All-Pro to the defensive line. Jones is nasty, violent, experienced and, right now, still in his 20s, but has already racked up an eye-popping 75.5 career sacks, 26 combined in the last 2 seasons alone, is literally one of the best to ever do it, and he can do it from the inside, the outside, or, hell, from the parking lot. But if you want Jones, and you do, break out the big purse. That sound you hear is me clutching my pearls, and opposing quarterbacks filing charges. Dallas Cowboys trade Dak Prescott for Justin Fields in crazy NFL trade projection. The Dallas Cowboys are facing a very large issue that many teams face when trying to keep a franchise quarterback while also trying to sign veteran star talent around him: salary caps. Due to salary cap issues, the Cowboys are facing 3 options: negotiate a very creative contract with Dak Prescott, cut veteran players and rely on younger players, trade Dak Prescott and bring in a new quarterback on a lower contract. For most teams with a quarterback who just went 12-5 and threw for over 4,500 yards in a season, option 3 wouldn't even be on the table. For the Dallas Cowboys, everything is on the table. A study was once done where many guests were invited to attend a Broadway show. The cast did a remarkable job, however, they made one intentional mistake. Guests were then asked after the show what stood out the most, and the majority responded with the mishap. Despite the 90-minute show showcasing the best actors and actresses who otherwise had a perfect show, the damage was done in one moment, and for the viewers, that is what stood out. For Dak Prescott, his mistake was before this past season when he led the NFL in interceptions. The other mistake is the inability to win a Super Bowl or even make a Super Bowl. For fans, nothing else matters. For them, the result is the same and has been for the past 8 years. In other words, they are ready, or at least more willing to move on than any other team in the league would be following a 12-5 season. The Dallas Cowboys are facing a situation where Dak Prescott is demanding and, quite honestly, deserves a huge payday. An article put out by Fansided explained it pretty well. With Prescott's nearly $60 million cap hit looming, the Cowboys have some important decisions to make. They can get clever with his contract, which has 1 year remaining, to help alleviate a chunk of that cap hit. They could also extend him in. It's the simplest way to stay relatively competitive, though it will come at a price. They cannot trade him without his approval. They cannot tag him. In all likelihood, Dak Prescott is going to be the highest-paid quarterback in football. The question becomes, do you pay Dak and essentially put all the eggs into one basket? If Dak is re-signed, the Cowboys will simply be forced to go with younger and less expensive talent. But this won't appease Dallas fans unless the Cowboys win or at least play in the Super Bowl in 2025. If the Cowboys trade Dak Prescott, the Bears are the perfect team to trade for. Prescott is well worth the first overall pick, plus Justin Fields for the Chicago Bears, and for the Cowboys it makes sense. This is what each team would get. Cowboys get to draft a new quarterback in the 2024 NFL Draft who will be on a contract a fraction the size of Dak Prescott. If that draft pick doesn't work out, they have at least a decent backup in Justin Fields and 2 valuable tradable players going into 2025 if they both don't work out. A new look would also cool off the fanbase a bit and allow a new player to get used to playing in the league. The Bears get a guaranteed great quarterback. There is no taking a risk in the NFL draft, and they have plenty of cap space to pay Prescott. In other words, this would be a win-win trade for both teams. The Dallas Cowboys probably need some kind of change to get the momentum around the fanbase really going in the right direction. Again, by all means a 12-5 regular season record is great. Still, for a fanbase that demands and believes that the roster is good enough to win Super Bowls, their patience will run out if they don't reach that goal next season, especially if they are paying Dak Prescott $60 million. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation about Justin Fields? Leave your opinion in the comments.